around here. Let pass. Put the line here. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. No public comment today. There's no public. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
I have. I didn't see anything to change.
If that's a motion, I'll second we approve the minutes.
Is moved and seconded to approve the minutes of 4/19/2008. All those in favor? It does say 2018, but on the agenda, but it's 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Commission comments and committee reports.
Go ahead. All right, I'll go. I had an K.S.A meeting last Thursday, kind of a shorter meeting, kind of reviewed our nuisance ordinance listing and pretty much everything was on cue. One thing that they had talked about a little bit when they were here to visit us is they're having the sanitation code updates are finally going to be coming soon for us to review, and then they want a public comment period on it. We'll have to think about getting a committee together to kind of review that. And Pat, are you kind of familiar with that procedure?
Yes, it's a little bit undemocratic in the sense that the agency wants to review them before you adopt it, although they can't order you to adopt it or not adopt it. So, but anyway, it gets sent to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. They make recommendations for any changes to it. Some of them are technical. I know we did it once before, and most of the changes were terminology, and they were pretty simple changes. But then after they do that, you will be asked to adopt the new resolution, including the code.
One thing she did note that I think we had asked when they got this started, I don't even know when they started the review and the rewriting of this, that our nuisance policy actually be written into our sanitary codes. So that will actually be incorporated into that, which I think is maybe a little different than a lot of county sanitation codes. But other than that, pretty standard stuff, I think. And that's all I have.
I had a JCAT meeting last week, and everything is, the budget's good. Megan Waters, which is the counterpart of Shelley for Lebanon County, wrote a grant and received a grant for $85,800, I think. She gave $5,800 of that to Lebanon Sheriff for intake, juvenile intake, and then the rest was divided between Atchison and Lebanon. Shelley mentioned that she would like to look at a vehicle and see where she's at then, and then put the rest towards maybe some salaries. That's all I have.
I don't have anything. Moving on, new business before the board. I have a payment from the bond trust indenture for Unified School District 377 for $2,500 and Atchison Sports Complex for $10,000, which is their quarterly maintenance fee. So the chair would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll also move.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I should be ready to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 3-0.
Mr. Chairman, we may want to back up to that sheriff request because I think he was wanting to get a copy of that. So
We're going to do that right now.
okay.
on that note, I'd like to make a motion to declare a Glock 22 Gen 4 40 caliber handgun, serial number VBW973, as surplus property to be disposed of by presenting it to Larry Myers for his 25 years of service.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0.
I presume we got the right number and everything.
I took it off of what the sheriff presented.
Okay, I have here a contract for Kinton Friend to be the administrator at the senior village. It's going to be effective the 9th day of April 2019. It talks about her expectations and some bonuses that she could achieve. I think it's a pretty comprehensive employment contract. It's been reviewed by Human Resources and our county counselor. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the contract and allow the chairman to sign it.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comments?
Was there any probation period in this?
Well, she's an employee
At will.
at will, like
Okay.
every other non-elected employee.
Okay. Anything else? So let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes 3-0. Okay. I think that's pretty much everything I have for new business. Is there any old business?
Pat, did you ever get a hold of Ham's Quarry about meeting with having one of them come up here?
I have not. I did. I talked to T.G. Ham probably 2 weeks ago. I haven't gotten back to him. He was willing to come, but he was going to look at his calendar, and so.
Is this related to rock going to Jefferson County?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we talk to
Both
Jefferson
issues.
County?
Well,
That's more their issue than it is Sam's.
But I think the truck routing would come from Hams, so I mean that would be between Jefferson County and Hams, not Atchison County and Jefferson
Are
County.
these township roads that they're traveling on?
Yes.
So shouldn't the townships contact
I
Jefferson
think
County?
they have, with no response.
Yeah. But
Or no
the
results.
the promise when they put the quarry in was that the Hams Quarry was to route trucks in and out, and they were to do the enforcement of it. Well, I don't know. There is no route in and out official, and it's kind of got put by the wayside. So,
What's our action point? What should we do?
well, Pat had suggested that we have Hams come up and we ask them if that's possible for them to do.
yeah, I think so. That would be my suggestion of the next step.
Would you take on the
Yes. Well, I dropped the ball on it, but yes, I will do that.
keep the ball up in the air here? Okay.
On a side note to Hams, did you see that in the Atchison Road? Telling people how they could get their desk controlled. It was on the front page of the Atchison Road. Who to contact. Did you catch that, Pat?
No.
Yeah, it was on there. It was in
Well, somebody was promoting. I think I got a mailing. Not desk control.
Yeah, there was an article on the Atchison Road.
Was it an article or an advertisement?
No, it's an article. The front page in the bottom right corner.
I didn't get my paper till yesterday. That's because I didn't go to get my mail Saturday. I haven't had a chance to read it. Okay, county councilor updates.
I have trying to get for the bridges that we're building. Of course, we need to get right of way, but we don't know the amount or the legal description of the right of way that we need until after the engineers do their work. And we have run into the problem before where the engineers have done the work and then the landowners are unwilling to sell, or it's difficult to reach agreement on it. So we have tried to be a little more proactive and try to obtain an option to purchase real estate before we have the engineer do the work on the bridges. And the response has been decent, except to the extent that we're having difficulty finding people that might be owners. But we've sent letters to all of the owners. I spent the better part of yesterday trying to track down a couple that we hadn't gotten responses from. I was a little bit successful. I think I got in touch with 2 of probably 8 or so that we were having trouble finding. But I also have 2 agreements that have been signed now by landowners, and I have 3 or 4 or 5 more of them that we have verbal agreements on, and they're supposed to have written agreements come back. What we're doing is we're paying $100, a flat fee of $100 for the option to purchase agreement. So to obtain the option, we're paying $100, and then included in the agreement is a map prepared by the appraiser's office that shows how the county is currently classifying the property, and that's either going to be classified as cropland or as dry grass, or excuse me, native grass or tame grass, or waste or residential. I think those are the only ones that we've run across so far. But setting a price per acre that we would pay for whatever type of ground it is that we're taking, ranging on the high end for cropland at $7,000 an acre, down to $1,000 per acre for wasteland. And a lot of what I anticipate that we would need would be the wasteland, because the bridges go over creeks and it's hard to farm through a creek. So I've had a lot of good comments from the owners once I've talked to them. We've not run across the only hesitancy about selling has been in regards to just the idea that they maybe don't want to sell anything, or that they're not allowed to sell things for a period of years based on a trust that was established and that they're a beneficiary of. But I think we're working around those. But I do have 2 agreements for the commission to consider. One by Donald and Jolene Reed, and they're trustees of their trust, and that's been executed. And then another by Laverne Fowler and Charles Fowler, again trustees of a trust. Both of these were signed yesterday in my office, so I'd ask the commission to consider them and to approve them. I also would add that the Fowlers did not want the $100 check, so I have the check to return that I had gotten a week ago. And they also indicated a willingness to donate land for the actual project. So I thank them for that. I appreciate their willingness to work with us. And
you stated that this $100 is just to say, okay, we're needing to buy some ground, and we're going to give you X amount per foot or per acre, and when the engineers come up with the plan, then we will know the actual amount of land we need.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then attached to that, there are 2 draft agreements for right-of-way. One for a permanent right-of-way and one for a temporary construction easement. And so we shouldn't have, the only thing that needs to be added is the exact legal description of the property that we need, but the rest of it is all done now.
This is definitely going to make it easier to proceed.
Yes, it should make it much easier.
We need a motion to approve them or just sign them?
Yes, and they don't necessarily have to be done today. If you want to take if you want to read them, that's no problem. I could email it to you if you want to do that.
How do you want to proceed? I mean,
I would entertain a motion to approve.
I so move.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
One
Passes
signature.
3-0.
One signature.
Just the chairman, and the date needs to be filled in on the front page.
Date on the front page on your side.
This is the 16th.
Yes.
I knew this because Patsy Porter has a clothes sign.
She's going.
I bet she does.
Yeah. Breathing pretty heavy there.
She got to the finish line, but I'm sure she's
Oh, I get you now, tax day.
Anything else, Pat?
Did you do the proclamation for EMS?
We're going to do that on the 23rd of May.
Straight.
Corey was coming up that day or something, or he wanted to
It's
add
well coordinated with their timing. So.
No, that's all I had.
Any need for an executive session?
Oh, there is one thing. Tax sale is next week, and I checked yesterday. I think we only had a handful of registrations, so people should go ahead and register. There's a bit of a change this year in that the name that is put on the registration is the name that the deed is going in. So if somebody wants to buy possibly for themselves or for their cousin or for their grandchild, they'll need to register for each of them.
They get the registration for the treasurer's office.
They start in the clerk's office. They have, I guess they can start either place, but the county clerk will issue the actual bid number, but the treasurer's office has to check to make sure that they're eligible because they can't purchase if they have delinquent real estate taxes in the county.
Let's say somebody has a second mortgage on a piece of property. Are they eligible to bid?
Yes, mortgage holders are explicitly allowed.
I was
to,
asked that question. I said,
yes.
I believe so. Contact you.
Yes, by statute they are.
Okay.
But bidders can come in that day and register, but it's just going to be to expedite it. It'd be nicer for them to come in early.
Yes.
So the clerk will tell the registrar that this is what the deed's going to say.
Yes, and I think it's spelled out fairly clearly on the paperwork we give them.
It's a substantial amount of paperwork.
Yes,
It's several pages.
it is several pages.
You know,
yes.
some people just glance at that.
And some people don't read it. I will remind people of that at the sale. If they want to transfer the property to someone else after a sale, if the buyer does, that's no problem. I don't have any quarrel with that, no objection to that happening, but it turns into potential liability for us, the county, if we're relying on after the sheriff has accepted a bid to take everybody's word for it that they want the deed issued in some other name. And also there's some difficulty in what we've done in the past is checked to see how they have other real estate that they own in the county titled, and that's quite a bit of time actually that's burned up in doing that. and
Are
So
you
we'll
gonna,
have to do
are you gonna notify the audience that the city may have some, bills against the property, or have you checked and they have none, or?
well, I can't, under the statute, this is something I didn't completely understand until this past year when Michelle and I pulled our hair out trying to figure it out. The special assessments for things like for mowing and weed control don't become a lien on the property until November 1st of the year in which they're assessed. And so even work that is done after the sale would still be a lien on the property and would not be extinguished, as would anything that's been done prior. That's a good idea to get a request to the city to ask them if there have been.
Yeah, then we could tell them that this place has a $52
Yes.
thing on. That'd be good for them to know. I
But,
know.
but that's before the sale, but
Yes.
that can also accumulate after the sale between.
Well, that'd be the new owner.
Yeah. But just so that, I think at the last tax sale, there was people that did not realize that there could be assessments.
They thought that was going to be wiped off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that happened after the tax sale, but before November 1st or whatever that date was. So.
I don't think we had been telling anybody the wrong thing. I think we had not addressed that explicit issue.
Mm-hmm.
We've cleared it up a little more to make it more clear that it's the buyer should beware. We also, every tax sale we have I get at least a couple of phone calls in November when tax statements come out saying, you said I didn't have to pay the taxes for this year, and that's not the case. But even though we say it at every sale.
You'd be surprised how many people don't realize they pay their taxes in the rear. They think they're paying for the
Right.
front.
Well,
Right.
it's important to find proper counsel that they should understand the bidding process before purchasing property.
We're trying to make that clear to people that if they don't understand it, they shouldn't bid. And if they have questions that I haven't addressed, that they probably need to talk to their own attorney about it.
Right. Anything else, Bud?
So, but just encourage people to get their bid numbers if they're going to bid.
And what's online is up to date.
Yeah, well, I don't know if
I know Roger was working on it yesterday. I talked to him.
Roger sent me an update yesterday. There was some discussion. I don't know if anything's been redeemed since then. It was up to date as of Monday. Yeah, yesterday.
Anything else, Bud?
No, sir.
Do we have any need for an executive session? Okay, we can pretty much do the agenda, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 1:24.
I saw that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are done. Was it a